Hello, welcome to Math with Mr. Dobrescu, to the rescue. Today let's continue with SBAC review part 3. And let's take a look at this problem here. Use the table below to draw a scatter plot. And here we have a table, and in this table we have oranges and grapefruit. And these oranges and grapefruit are sold to 6 different customers. And now, looking at this table, we are going to draw a scatter plot to represent this data in the table. And first of all, here for the x axis, we have the oranges, and on the y-axis, we have the grapefruit. And now we are going to graph this scatter data into this coordinate plane and create a scattered plot. Okay? And let's take a look here. The oranges are the x values and the grapefruit are the y values. Okay? So now we are going to create first ordered pairs. Okay? So the first ordered pair is for 3 oranges, there are 3 grapefruit. Okay, sold. So we have 3, 3. The first 3 represent the x and the second 3 represents the y. Let's take a look at the second set of numbers. The oranges are 4 and then we have 2. 4, 2. This is the second order pair. The third order pair we have 0, 6. 0, 6. Next, let's continue. 2, 5. 2, 5. And then we have 5, 2. And finally we have 6 and 3. Now that we have created the order pairs for this data, now we are going to graph those order pairs into this coordinate plane, and then we are going to create the scatter plot. We're not going to connect the dots, just graph each of these order pairs. So the first one we have 3, 3. So x is 3, y is 3. X is 3, y is 3, so it's somewhere right here. That's the first scatter plot dot. The second one we have x is 4, y is 2. X is 4, y is 2 right here. Next one we have x is 0, y is 6. X is 0, y is 6. It goes right here. Then we have x is 2, y is 5. X is 2, and then y is 5, somewhere right there. And then we have x is 5, y is 2. X is 5, and then y is 2 right here. And finally we have x is 3, x is 6, y is 3. X is 6, and then y is 3 right there. And that's it. We created a scattered plot right here. That's our scatter plot. So if they ask you a question like this on the test, first of all, you make sure you are going to create the order pairs from the table first. And then we are going to graph those order pairs on our graph here and create the scatter plot. Let's take a look at another problem. And in this problem here we have, Jenny has $1.65 in quarters and dimes. So here we have quarters and dimes. And we know that the quarter is 25 cents or 0.25. And dime is 10 cents or 0.10. Okay? So quarters 0.25 and dimes 0.10. She has X quarters and 3 times as many dimes as quarter. So X quarters and 3 times as many dimes as quarters. And the question is, which equation represents this situation? I drew already this scenario for you guys to see it clearly, okay? Because actually the answer is C, okay? The answer is C. And the reason is, here we have 0.25x, right? Because she has X quarters, right? X quarters, and the quarters are 0. The value of a quarter is 25 cents. So x quarters, right? And then she has 3 times as many dimes as quarters. 3 times as many dimes as the quarters. So that's what makes only sense. And if we add them together, we get $1.65. Pay attention at this type of problem because you may encounter this type of problem on the test and you need to know how to interpret the multiple choice answers and make sure you choose the one that makes sense. Okay? Let's take a look at another problem here. And in this problem here we have use the graph below to answer the question. And here we have a graph. And in this graph, the graph shows the amount of food Xander's pet mouse eats compared to his pet bird. Which statement correctly compares the amount of food each pet eats? Okay, so then we have different statements, but let's take a look first at our graph. So the x axis represent the bird food eaten in ounces, right? So here we have 1 ounce, 2 ounces, 3 ounces, and so forth. And the y-axis represent the mouse food eaten in ounces, right? So 1 ounce, 2 ounces, and 3 ounces, and so forth. So the x represent the bird food eaten, and the y represents the mouse food eaten. Okay? And let's take a look at these options here. Let's take a look at A, multiple choice answers. For every 1 ounce of food the bird eats, so for every 1 ounce of food the bird eats, the mouse eats 2 ounces. So the mouse is 2 ounces. And this is coming right there. And obviously is not on our line. So this cannot be the answer. Okay, A cannot be the answer because that dot does not fall on our line, okay, of the graph that is given to us in the problem. Let's take a look at option B. For every 2 ounces of food the bird eats, so for every 2 ounces of food the bird eats, okay, the mouse eats 1 ounce of food. So for every 2 ounces, the mouse eats 1 ounce of food. Okay, so for every 2 ounces, so it's supposed to be somewhere right there. Let's see if we find a better option. We don't know exactly for sure. Actually, it's below the line, right there. And let's see if we can find a better option. And let's read C now. For every 2 ounces of food the bird eats, the mouse eats 3 ounces of food. So for every 2 ounces, 3 ounces. So this cannot be the answer. C cannot be the answer. Okay? Because it's off the line right there. Let's read D now. For every 3 ounces of food the bird eats, the mouse eats 2 ounces of food. So for every 3 ounces of food, the mouse eats 2 ounces of food, and it falls right on the line. Okay? The other one was just beneath the line, so B cannot be the answer. So the answer is D. Okay? So that's how you are going to approach this problem on the test. You are going to graph each of these options from the multiple choice answers on the graph, plot all the dots on the graph, and you only choose the answer of the dot that falls right exactly on the line. So right there, it's D. So the answer to our problem is D because this dot is actually on the line. Okay? Pay attention to these type of problems. And let's take a look at these two problems. The first one, which expression represents the m squared times 2.56? M squared means m to the second power. Okay, so here we have, this cannot be because this is m times 2, so A cannot be the answer. Okay, D cannot be the answer also because we do not have m to the second power. Okay, and here is C cannot be the answer because 2.56 m are in a parenthesis, and then both of these, 2.56 and the variable m, are going to be raised at the second power. So this is going to be 2.56 squared times m squared. And this is not what the question is. Which expression represents m, only m squared. Only m squared times 2.56. Only m squared times 2.56. So obviously this cannot be the answer. So the answer is only B. M squared times 2.56. Pay attention to this type of problem. Make sure you underline, you cross the answers that don't make sense, and then you start to reason, okay, which variable has only the m raised to the second power. And the answer is only B can satisfy this information given in the question, in the problem. Okay? Pay attention to this type of questions because they can be a little tricky. Let's take a look at this problem here. Which type of number is -2? Okay? So we know that -2 belongs to the category of integers. Okay? And integers are whole numbers. Okay, make sure they are whole numbers, not 1/5, not 5/7. They have to be whole numbers. Okay? Whole numbers that can be positive, they can be 1, 2, 3, and so forth, but they can also be negative or 0. So the integers are negative and positive whole numbers, including 0. Okay? So, since -2 is a whole number, a negative whole number, we can say with confidence that is an integer. Okay? Let's just take a look at also option B. What is an irrational number? An irrational number, for example, is like square root of 2, square root of 3, square root of 5, and so forth. Those numbers that are under the square root and cannot come out of the square root. Is not like 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So that number, square root of 4, cannot be irrational because square root of 4 is 2. So only the numbers that cannot come out of the square root are called irrational numbers. And natural numbers are whole numbers only from 1 on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Those are natural numbers. And finally, the whole numbers. Whole numbers are natural numbers, but also here we include the 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. But -2 is not natural because it's negative. It's to the left of 0. It's not whole because it's 0 or more. It's below 0. It's not irrational because we know irrationals are numbers that cannot come out of the square root. It is only integer. Pay attention to this type of problem because they may ask you this type of problem on the test because integers are very, very important, and we've done it last year in 7th grade. Okay, we added, subtracted, multiplied, and divided integers, and I even added a couple of videos on that, how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Okay, pay attention to integers. And finally, let's take a look at another problem here. Use the equation below to answer the question. So the equation is 5 times 2m plus 10 in a parenthesis equals 2 times 5m plus 10 in another parenthesis. And the question is, which statement correctly describes the value of m? So let's read all these statements that describe the value of m. It says here, the variable m has no correct solution. We don't know yet. How can we find that out? Obviously, we need to solve this equation first, and then we can see which answer would be the right answer, the multiple choice. So when you have this type of problem on a test, make sure you solve this equation first. Solve first. And then after you solve it, we are going to interpret the answer and look at these multiple choice answers to see which one is the right answer. Okay? So let's solve this problem. Let's rewrite the problem. 5 times 2m plus 10 equals 2 times 5m plus 10. And here we are going to use first the distributive property, that very, very important property where we have to draw the arrows, because we are going to distribute the 5 over 2m and distribute the 5 over the 10. And the same thing now we are going to distribute the 2 over the 5m and 10 and see what we get and solve this equation for m. Let's multiply. 5 times 2m, 5 times 2 becomes 10m. And then we have 5 times 10 becomes 50 plus 50 equals 2 times 5m becomes 10m. And 2 times 10 becomes 20. Okay, let's see what we get now. So now we have variables on both sides. And remember, when we have an equation with variables on both sides, our goal is to bring all the variables to one side of the equation. So in this case, the only option we have is to subtract 10m from both sides. Minus 10m here, minus 10m here. And let's see what we get. 10m minus 10m cancel each other out. So we are left over with 50 equals, and this cancel each other out, 20. And the question is, does 50 equals 20? And the answer is no, it is a false statement, because 50 does not equal 20, and here we get a false statement. And because we get a false statement, anytime we solve an equation and we get rid of all the variables and we get a false statement, the answer is no solution. Okay, so here we have no solution. No solution. So this equation has no solution. This equation has no solution. And we know that information. Now with that information in mind, now let's read all the answers and find out which of these multiple choice answers is telling us that there is no solution. Okay, so it's A, the variable m has no correct solution, and so far this is good. Let's continue. B, the variable m has infinitely many correct solutions. What does it mean, B? Infinitely many correct solutions. It means that just in case, after we got rid of the variable, if let's say we got, instead of 20, we got also 50, if we had 50 equals 50, then yes, B would have been the correct answer. But we got 50 equals 20, so B cannot be the answer. And then let's continue with C. The variable m has one solution, and it is when m equals 0. Obviously, there's no one solution because we didn't get m equals 0. Actually, the variables got canceled. M got canceled. We just got 50 equals 20. So C cannot be the answer also. And finally, the variable m has one solution, and it is when m equals 1. We also didn't get m equals 1 because we got rid of the m. M canceled out. So D is not the answer. So the only answer is m has no correct solution. No solution, right? Because 50 does not equals 20. Okay? Therefore, there's no correct solution. Pay attention to this type of problem. And let's take a look at one more problem here. And in this problem we have students are rafting on a river. They travel approximately 4 miles per day. They raft for how many days? 3 days. So they ride for 3 days. 3 days. And they travel 4.7 miles per day. What does it mean? 4.7 miles per day. 4.7 miles per day. And then we have to multiply those together, right? We got to multiply times 3, right? To find out, it says here, what is the best estimate? So we got to do the best estimate of the total distance, right? So the total distance, obviously, we have to multiply 4.7 times 3. But they're asking us to do the best estimate because take a look at the answers here. 12, okay? Let's see if 12 would make sense. 3 times 4 would be 12, but here we have 4.7, and 4.7 is close to actually 5. So we round 4.7, we are rounding it up to 5, right? So let's round 4.7 to 5, and now 5 times 3 actually is 15. So 15 is the answer for that problem because 8 cannot be the answer, 12 cannot be the answer, 19 cannot be the answer, and 25 is too much. So the only answer is 15B. Okay? That's how you approach this type of problem and solve and make sure we are looking for the best estimate. So when they are telling us that information, we are going to round 4.7 to 5 and then multiply 5 times 3. And that is actually 15 is the best estimate. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I appreciate you paying attention to these problems. And now I'm sure and confident that you will do really well on that test. Do your best on the test this coming up and get that high score and do well and get ready for high level math. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share these videos with your friends. And make sure you stay tuned for our next video. All the best to you.